Okay, let's get going with this morning's coffee conversation. My name is Heidi Ellsworth, and I am the president of Rupert Coffee Shop, and I am honored to be here today to moderate and have this amazing conversation on mental health. You are all going to be blown away, I tell you, by these ladies who are here today to help us talk through this very important conversation. Before we get started, I do want a little bit of housekeeping. Remember, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to share this. You'll be able to get this out. It'll be on demand within 24 hours or less. Also, this is a Q&A. So this is questions and answers. We want you throughout the whole show. Don't wait till the end. We want you asking questions, chatting what your thoughts are. We want to have a great conversation. So whether you want to just chat within the chat box, if you're interested in coming on, Megan can bring you on to the conversation in a live video, or we can even bring you on an audio. However you would like to do that, we want you engaged. And finally, we want to be sure that you're sharing this out to everyone. This is an incredibly important topic. So just be sure, as we get this done, it comes on demand to share this, because I tell you what, there's nothing more important than what's going on in our world right now than taking care of each other, taking care of everybody. So I really want to, before we get started, say a huge thank you to Tremco and WTI, who are our sponsors today. For those of you who may not know the Tremco, WTI companies and families, they are amazing. And when you talk about people putting people first, that's what happens at Tremco. I see it every single day. They care about their folks. They work with them every day, and they have some of the strongest diversity within the entire roofing industry. So thank you so much, Tremco and WTI, for being our sponsors today and understanding what an important and critical topic mental health is. So let's get started. First, I would like to introduce Mandy McIntyre with First Choice Roofing out of Cleveland, Ohio. Good morning, Mandy.
Good morning, Heidi. Thank you so much.
It is so great to have you here today. I love these conversations, and you always bring the best ones to the table. So before we get started, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone about your company and about your career.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Mandy McIntyre. I'm the vice president at First Choice Roofing in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm going into my 9th year there. And I'm very much involved with National Women in Roofing. I have a passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion, for topics such as mental health, leadership, women's empowerment. So these conversations are so important to me, and I think they're important to everybody and for the industry as a whole to see beyond the status quo. Obviously, it's a very male-dominated industry, so to break the stigma of mental health, to break the stigma of women's gender roles in roofing, and bring these topics to a national platform. Heidi, thank you for just allowing us to have these discussions, because they're very much needed, they're very important, and they're very empowering.
Thank you, Mandy. I know, having been in the industry for a long time, we're going to talk about this more, but this was one of those no-talk topics, and we're bringing it out of the corners, and we're going to shine some bright light on it today. So thank you for making it out there. I also want to introduce Christy Holbrook of Graham Roofing. Christy is amazing. She is the owner of the business. I've got to work with her on National Women in Roofing, and we are just seeing some real amazing things happening from a different perspective with Christy. So Christy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And please introduce yourself.
So I'm Christy Holbrook. I'm president and one of the owners of Graham Roofing, which is a commercial industrial roofing company in West Point, Mississippi. Very involved in National Women in Roofing. Just recently got involved in NAWIC. Sit on a few boards. Workforce development is my passion. Mental health awareness has come into play, and since we took ownership, and it was a very difficult topic to find help on. So just kind of here to share my thoughts and what we had to do and where we're going with it.
I love it. Thank you, Christy, for being here. This is so great. So let's get started. And we already have some comments coming in. We're gonna, there's gonna be a couple slides that we're gonna go through with resources at the end. But right now we are going to get all of us up here. So here we go. Okay. I also want to mention that, of course, we have Megan Ellsworth, our multimedia producer in the background. And Megan is, she's been putting a lot of this together, and she's actually going to join us probably in a half hour or so with some Gen Z perspectives. So we have that to look forward to too. Okay. So we have some great questions that have come in earlier. And so I want to start with you, Mandy. You reached out to us, you reached out to me, and you said, this is a topic that I think is so important and we're not talking about it. Heidi, can we talk about it? So will you share kind of how that, your journey, you were just talking about what you've been doing, but kind of overall, and why you are really bringing this to the forefront and what you're seeing?
Yes. So at First Choice, we've had mental health issues with our workforce over the years. And pre-COVID, there were issues with substance use. We had to do interventions for a couple of our employees, and we struggled with that. Like, how do you deal with that? Because at that point, mental health, it was important to me, but it wasn't. I'm a certified yoga and meditation instructor, so I've always been very holistic in my approach to leadership and employee development, but it didn't quite click with mental health and how you address that. So we had people with issues, and we would just, guide them in the right direction, but there wasn't enough. Then the pandemic hit, and there was a real, it was a glaringly just problem with mental health. So what I started to do is toolbox talks. And I remember the very first one that I did was owning your feelings. Now imagine a group of male roofers, and their toolbox talk for the week is owning your feelings. So at first there was some little remarks and a lot of eye rolling, but at the end, they were very receptive. So we started incorporating mental health toolbox talks in with our, regular safety training. And we had an employee who was in and out of rehab. And I remember the last time I talked to him, I said, please take care of yourself. I never want to get the phone call that you're dead. And 6 months later, I got that phone call. And it was really hard for me personally, because I was like, what more could I have done? I failed somewhere. And I know you can't control what people do, but you can do the best that you can to help them. So I started researching mental health. What can I do to teach myself to help others? So I got certified in mental health first aid. And literally a month after I got that done, I had someone come up to me that said they were having suicidal thoughts and they were struggling. And I was able to calmly, because it's like when someone says that to you, like, what do you do? But I had the tools and I knew what to do. And now him and I are working together on a path to get him some help, some treatment. And so it's just been this mounting effect that is just needed. And so I just want to bring this outside of my bubble into the industry as a whole, because I know if my company is having issues, others are too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And wow. Okay. So I want to come back to that mental health first aid too. I really want to talk about that. But before we do that, Christy, you have a very similar story. Can you share exactly like why, when Mandy came and said, will you do this? And you're like, yes, because tell us about that.
So I also have had experience with suicide in the workplace, which You've always heard of it, construction #1 suicide rate. Never had dealt with it until around 2018. And we had an employee who was, had been in an accident, non-work related accident. And he tried to come back afterwards and really struggled between his health and his depression. And, talked to him, please go get some help, talk to someone, get some counseling. He went home for a little while because of some more health issues. And we got the call that he had taken his own life, and it was devastating to everyone. I called in a counselor to come in and talk to the guys about what had happened and mental health in general, because again, it was the first time we had ever experienced it. And then we had another employee who had experienced some mental health problems while he was working. And after he left employment here, he ended up taking his life. So it's devastating. They become like family to us. And trying to find the tools to help our employees was very difficult. So again, we've set out to, how can we help our employees going forward? What could we have done different? So that's kind of the mission we've been on.
So, and Mandy, maybe talk, when you, exactly to Christy's point, bringing in a therapist, doing these things, and it sounds like both of you have started putting that larger plan together for mental health. So maybe Mandy, talk a little bit about, I think when you said it the other day, it was the first time I've ever heard of mental health first aid specialists. And hopefully I'm saying that right.
Yeah. So it's through the National Council for Mental Wellbeing. And I stumbled upon it, and I love learning. I mean, you can see all my books behind me. So I like any kind of training or certification, I'm so into it, because when I want to know something, I want to know everything about it. So I was like, mental health first aid, what is that? And it basically, it helps you, it teaches you to identify, understand, and respond to a mental health challenge or crisis. So whether that's mental health with anxiety, depression, suicide thoughts, or substance use. It was an 8-hour training, and it's a 3-year certification. So you've heard of first aid training and being certified in first aid, but mental health first aid, this is brand new. And it's something that I think every company should have somebody trained in this to deal with the mental health issues that will arise. It's not if, it's when. I mean, because they will. And I love it. I love being able to help people, and the buy-in in return for offering that support, offering the resources, learning to look for the signs is, it's incredible. You connect with your employees better. You build more trust with them, and they're more engaged. You're empowering them. So you are just strengthening your workforce by putting in these initiatives.
And so you started with, I love it. Let's talk about feelings, right? That toolbox talk. So you started with a toolbox talk, because really to get trained as a first aid, mental health first aid, that's one thing, but to start talking about it during your toolbox talks out in the field with your crew, everybody in your company, how did that work, and how did that go over?
Well, at first I think it was, maybe there was a little polarization. There were some people that were like, what are we talking about here? Like, this is roofing. Why are we talking about our feelings? And then there was others that you could tell didn't want to really speak up, but were actively listening. And the toolbox talk with owning your feelings, it was addressing that feelings arise, but not attaching yourself to them. So instead of saying, I'm angry, you would say, I am feeling angry, and recognizing those thoughts and trying to not attach yourself to them. Because then when you go onto the job site, when you have a foreman that's pissed off, in a bad mood, he was fighting with his wife, he's got, you know, things going on with his kids, that is a safety hazard, because they're bringing all of that stuff to the job site. So if you can help people manage their feelings and learn how to deal with them and respond to them versus react, you have a safer workforce, a safer job site. So by the end of the toolbox talk, there was a couple like aha moments, so to speak, but there's still a lot of work to be done, because people are afraid to admit that, yes, I have an anger problem, or yes, I deal with depression, or yes, I deal with anxiety. So the more you talk about it, then it's just normal. You know, if someone had diabetes, or if someone had cancer, you wouldn't be shy about talking about how to help that person. Yeah. And mental health is no different.
I've had similar experiences. Christy, first of all, have you been bringing that into your toolbox, talks to your safety, and also as you brought therapists in, kind of tell us how your teams responded to that?
Quiet. They when I brought the therapist in, they didn't have a lot to say to him. We encouraged any of them that, you know, that it was okay to go talk to him privately if they wanted to. We always keep his number up, and in case they need to have a session with him. And we have started doing toolbox talks and talking to our foremans about, you know, learning to see and identify if someone is struggling, because we have had at least 2 other employees that have struggled with depression and reached out to them to get counseling. You know, this is probably going to sound crazy, but we had one employee and really worked with him, and he asked me to go to one of his sessions with him. So I did. Whatever it took to help him, because I did not want to lose him, whether he was working for me or not. And he's not anymore, but I still check on him. You know, again, they become family and we love them, but has been a struggle to find how to help someone. And then there's also that struggle with us, because we're a small company. Again, everyone becomes like family, is where do you draw the line? You know, what's going overboard? So it's been a struggle. And again, I'm constantly trying to find tools, and I cannot wait to get certified by Mandy whenever she can train us. So
I love that. So we are already having some questions come in. So I want to just be really talking about them as we go, because this is just so poignant. So first of all, Maureen Greaves is on, and she says that they are honored to be a sponsor. And again, Maureen, you guys, you're great. And Lisa Garcia also, and Michelle Boykin. So hello, all of you. And John Kenny, and just some truly amazing people. But I really love this question. So Blair, I hope I say your last name right, Jagush. I hope. If I say it wrong, please forgive me. But some really important discussions. Thank you for making mental health visible in this industry, which I just think is a huge topic. And the fact that we're even talking about it, from my own personal experience, I know, and I'm not reading now, but from my own personal experience, I know it's like the big secret, right? Nobody talks about it. And we have started a dialogue within our business. This is from Blair, by talking about mental health and the importance of physical health influencing our mental health. That's huge, because I really believe, like you said that up front, Christy, that he had an accident, he was sick, he couldn't do what was normally he would do, and that just led to that mental health. I mean, and with the injuries that we see in roofing, maybe talk to that a little bit, Christy.
You know, his was an off-site injury, but we tried to bring him back as quickly as we could. He wanted to come back to work. He needed to come back to work, and he knew that mentally he needed to come back to work. But when he came back to work, realized he couldn't be out on the job site. So we did try to bring him into the shop, really worked with him to try to keep him here, keep him busy, but also pay close attention to his physical problems he was having. But he just couldn't do it, and went home, and we don't know why. We didn't know anything. It was just very devastating. But one of our other employees, I try to keep him working, because I do think it's important. If you go home and you go to bed, it just feeds your depression. So, stay busy, stay working. But it's challenging.
Well, and this kind of brings to mind, I'm thinking about, we are an aging industry, right? We have a number of, this is one of the reasons we're working so hard, is to bring the next generation in, to let them understand that we can talk about these issues and stuff. But when you think about older men who maybe cannot do what they used to do on the roof, that is a point of pride. And and for women too. I mean, as we get older, it's like, I used to be able to do this and now I can't. So there's a mental health issue within that, and depression that comes. And it seems like if we can break down some of these stigmas and barriers of what is productive and roles, and through technology, through mentoring, through advisory. Mandy, have you seen some of that as you're with, trying to bring that aging, but also staying relevant?
Yeah. So what we do is we have Wellness Wednesdays, and it's a post that it's an intercompany platform that we post. I post a tip every Wednesday for physical and for mental health. So it'll be, the benefits of sleep, the benefits of getting enough water, nutrition. We have yoga every Wednesday to move your body, and it's a gentle, all level accessible yoga class. And then there's another thing, is having your self-care resources. So when you talk about self-care, people think, oh, you're just lounging around, but that's really not it. Self-care is, what hobbies do you enjoy? What do you like to do that makes you feel happy? And it's having a list of your self-care strategies readily available. So when you're having a bad day, you just go to your list. And part of this was from my mental health first aid training, because as part of it, of being certified in mental health first aid, is making sure your own mental health is good. And self-care is one of the biggest things that they discuss. And so I've tried to incorporate that with our employees, to let them know that you need to take care of yourself, because when you're taking care of yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally, then that helps your mental health as well.
But I think there's also, and I'm going to speak more from an older generation, from a Gen X, there's like a stigma against doing that, right? That you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be working. It's supposed to be a productive time. It's like, well, I'll tell a secret from my thing. I like to read science fiction, right? I like to read things that have zero to do with business. And I always feel guilty, like I really should be reading a business book. But no, that's my quiet time. That's my escape time. And I don't think I think there was, yeah, go ahead. I'll quit talking here because it seems like that was something that we were told.
Yeah. And I think that's part of, breaking that stigma too, is that mentality that you always have to be working, you always have to be improving, but the downtime of your day, that's your reset. That's like saying to somebody, don't sleep. Like if you don't sleep, you're not gonna function well. Well, if you don't take care of yourself with things that bring you joy, that make you happy, that aren't work related, you're not going to function as well. And it's breaking that's a whole nother stigma that needs addressed. So that's why I really advocate for self-care, that it is not being selfish. If anything, you are enabling yourself to do your job better, to take care of your family better, to take care of your work, your company better, and everybody you know. So like if you think of when you're in a plane and the oxygen mask, they say put the mask on first before you help other people. So it's the same concept. Like you have to take care of yourself first to be good to anybody else.
Right. And Christy, are you finding that? I mean, I know you just before we got on here, you were talking about you have definitely an older employees who have been 30 and 40 years with you, which is so impressive. So how this is a hard topic. This is a hard topic to bring up in that generation.
They don't say a whole lot when we talk about it. The older guys. Again, I'm finding that the younger generation is much more open to talk about it. Those are the ones that we have really seen have struggled, brought them in and talked to them. You know, you need to go get some help. How can we help you? You know, I can recommend someone. We have counselors. I have a guy coming in this month to do a mental health awareness talk towards the end of the month. So we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. But again, it just seems to be the younger generation is more open to it. But I myself have had to, I think the more you get to know yourself, then you can kind of understand what you need for wellness. Like I need to rest on the weekends. I also like to read books that mean easy reads that mean nothing. I don't have to think about them because when I go home at night, I'm mentally exhausted. Mm-hmm. So it's just talking about all this and making people aware. And I think the more you talk about it, the more people are aware of it.
Yeah. And the less it becomes a taboo to talk about. Mm-hmm. Brad Belden, thank you for being on here. Brad said, can you share the resource for the mental health certification? I like the comparison. You have first aid training, but what about mental health first aid training? So Mandy, I think we have a slide on that towards the end, but if you want to talk about that real quick.
Yes. So I'm actually in the process of getting my instructor certification so that I can then certify others for mental health first aid. And it's through the National Council for Mental Wellbeing. And so they have guidelines for how you have to certify someone in mental health first aid. But what I want to do with it is make it construction focused with mental health toolbox talks, a mental health first aid kit for every truck and every foreman, which is just a resource guide and a quick little outline of what to do if there's a challenge or crisis. What are the symptoms that you might be looking for, and how to address them. So if I don't have anything, it's not complete yet, but if you message me, follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll be putting up a newsletter, a mental health newsletter starting in June. And then I'll be offering the training starting in June or July too. So I started compiling a list. There's a lot of interest and I'm so excited that people are interested in it. So yes, message me, Mandy McIntyre on LinkedIn, and I will add you to my newsletter list and get you more information for the mental health first aid certification.
And Mandy is also an RCS influencer and has a directory on Roofers Coffee Shop. So Mandy, we got to make sure we get, I would love to share all of that out so people can find you however we do this. So I love this. This is going to be, Mandy, congratulations. It's so important. Thank you. We have a question from Alice, and Alice Reynolds, who said, hi, Alice. How do you create an environment where employees feel like they can be open in front of the other employees? For example, what if there are some employees who bully others for being different? Thank you both for sharing your experiences. I know that everyone here hopes that it doesn't take losing a life before being active in their employees' mental health. Great question. Mm-hmm. Christy, you want to start with that one?
To how to be more open in front of other employees, was that?
Yeah, and kind of taking on the bullying, and we do have some of that, everywhere. people who bully others, and how do they talk about that openly?
I don't know if they do yet openly. They know they can always come to us, and we'll address it. Our employees come to us with all kind of things, personal work, and we do try to help them and address it. But bullying, if we have it, we don't really see it or hear about it.
That's the problem, right? That's what we need to be able to talk more about that. Mandy, have you dealt with that?
Yes. And actually, starting next week, we're doing a foreman leadership training program to address these kind of topics, because sometimes I think it's best to address certain things privately, but to also address it in a public way, but so that you're addressing it more as, this is our company culture. These are the things we are hearing. We're not pointing fingers, but it doesn't align with our values. And so then you take that statement and you put it into action. So we're doing a foreman leadership training, and talking about, when you talk down to somebody, when you talk behind someone's back, you are breaking trust in the team. And the number one foundation of teams is trust. So once you start breaking that down, you don't have much of a team. So I've actually called, one time there was an issue, and I just called this impromptu meeting, and I was kind of heated. I was a little pissed, but I was just like, someone's broken trust. I don't like it. We need to fix it. This doesn't align. If you don't align, if your values don't align with our company values, then you don't need to be a part of this company. But if you want to be a part of this company, then you have to be a good person, and you have to do better. And no one's infallible to making comments or whatever. But when you see it become a habit, then it's an issue. And then that's when it needs full attention before it grows into something bigger.
And getting it early, really right there early about it. So
so just like just get everyone together and address it.
Yeah.
I love it. Our crews, of course, we have a couple of crews, and I think they have their own language within their crews, if that makes sense. Sometimes I think that it's very difficult for someone new to get on a crew and learn how they do things, learn how they joke around with each other. So
yes,
we always try to talk to them about that up front. And again, just encourage, if you feel like you're being bullied, or someone's talking down to you, or whatever it is, come in and talk to us individually. And again, yes, we will address it as a whole, as a company, but we don't address it in front of everyone. Like Mandy said, it's more of a private one-on-one kind of.
And I've talked to, there was an issue once with a foreman, and Christy, you make a great point. Someone new whose feelings were hurt. So I talked to the foreman. I said, hey, you said this person is telling me that it really upset them what you said. And the foreman was like, I didn't mean it that way. I feel bad. I don't want him to feel that way. So just having those conversations, in a private setting, and then you bring them together and you just kind of clear the air, because sometimes how people interpret things versus how they're meant to be addressed don't coincide.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because especially, again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go back on the generations, but the older generation may be saying something that they don't think there's any problems with, and they're just like, blah, 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 moving on and going. And then all of a sudden, I've had this happen to me, and somebody's like, well, that was politically incorrect. That was insulting. And I'm like, oh, I didn't mean that. And so that's why I'm always like, we have to learn, the older generation has to learn from the younger generation as much as vice versa. On how there's new languages out there, or old languages, like on the cruise. I like that, Christy, because it's true. They all know, they've all been working together. They got it. Tom Trulson, thank you. If his question is, if a company is currently experiencing these issues and they don't have anyone certified on staff or as a resource at the moment, what is a good first step in helping said employees? Great question. Mandy, you want to start that one?
Yeah, so I think the best first step is to start incorporating toolbox talks with mental health first aid. And you can Google them and find them. I'm going to have them as part of my newsletter that's coming out. But that is the best first step, because safety is not just physical safety. Mental safety is just as, if not more important. Again, because if you come in and your head's not in the game, you are more susceptible to an injury because you're not paying attention. So the toolbox talks with anything mental health related would be my number one suggestion.
I think I froze. Okay, sorry about that. And I missed it, Mandy, too. But no, but go ahead, Christy. Also on that same issue, what are some first steps if you don't have some of these other resources in place?
Well, again, we knew of a counselor. He does all kind of counseling, drug, alcohol, depression. We reached out to him, again, brought him in to talk to our guys and provided the resources that they needed to find him, should they need help. We also have community counseling, which is a local group that we can bring in, send people to. We also have a couple other, if they're looking for help, that's how we can help them, by giving them the resources outside to get help and really encourage it. And again, we let people be off indefinitely until they could get their mental health, to where it needed to be so they could come back to work.
And I think, I just have to say, I think that is so important because in our family, we have histories of panic and anxiety, and we, so as a family, we've started having strong discussions about this. But I have to tell you, one of the hardest things to do is find good counselors or find good therapists, right? Because it's almost worse when you find one that's not so good. So to have your company invest in time in finding somebody to help the employees, I think that says a lot. Go ahead, Mandy.
Oh, no, I was going to say, if you have an HR department, whatever benefit package that you offer, start to look into what are the mental health resources within the medical benefits, and having those readily available for your team to utilize. Yeah. And there's a lot of free stuff too. I have a whole list of websites and stuff that I can try to put in the chat while we're talking here, but like Mental Health America, National Association of Mental Illness, mentalhealth.gov, Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. I mean, they are out there, and you can find like a ton of information to just start as a starting point for how you're going to address these. And even if it's just as simple as we have some printed posters throughout our warehouse and where our training room is and in the office that just has like some resources, so that the more you see it around, then the more people just become comfortable with it. So I would put some like posters up, some flyers up.
That's very, so I just looked down at my messages as I'm reading these. We have 25 new messages. So I'm going to read a couple of these. But Wendy Marvin just came through, and her comment was trailblazing in industry. She says she has that us three are her business crushes. So there, thank you, Wendy. You're so sweet. We are the family that our employees need. Thank you for caring and for answering a call in mental health. Just Cress, thank you for all addressing this highly important and highly overlooked issue. And Megan, thank you for responding so much. Kaylee, I hope I said your name right. Let me get that. Her question was how to influence or encourage an older generation executive team to buy into mental health awareness initiative. Wow, that's a great question. Mandy, you're nodding.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes back to your company culture, and your leadership team has to set the tone. It has to go from top down and vice versa, so that it's all encompassing. So I think doing some lunch and learns, highlighting the importance, highlighting stats. I like to discuss things from historical and factual aspects. So when you start putting these statistics out there, and you put in how this is actually affecting you, and there's stats out there at what it like if someone has a mental health issue and they hurt themselves, how much is that going to cost your company? And there's actually OSHA, you can actually get a recordable for mental health through OSHA. I did some research, and if there's work-related stress or mental illness, it can be recordable if the employee provides the employer with an opinion from a physician or other licensed health professional stating that the employee has a mental illness that is work-related. So if we talk about toxic company culture, toxic management, toxic leaders, if someone is feeling fear and anxiety just from walking through your doors, that could be an OSHA violation.
Yeah.
It really can. I mean, so these things are real. They're not snowflake topics. They're not fluff topics. They are real topics dealing with employees that are human. And I think sometimes we forget that our workforce, our employees are human beings, and you have to invest in their professional and personal growth. That's how you're going to get better engagement. That's how you're going to get employees. That's where I go into, there is no labor shortage. There's just a lack of good leadership. So yeah, so I think you can bring these topics to light if you bring it in a factual, statistical manner.
Yeah.
With an older generation.
Right. Well, and I kind of want to hit on that too, because of course, first thing is people, and people are the most important thing. But for Kaylee, I'm going to say from a business side of it, and having been in, much to what Mandy's saying and Christy's nodding, having been on that side where I've had to present things that are more emotional and that are harder topics to talk about, you need to come with numbers and need to come with statistics. And in today's world, when we are talking about labor shortage, you need to talk about recruitment and retention. Because if you are talking about mental health, you're going to recruit people who realize you have a diverse and progressive and open company. You're going to bring in more of the younger generation, and you're going to retain the people who are already there. So those kind of, I think, more business numbers and stats, and I hope nobody takes that the wrong way, will actually make a bigger influence, I think, on an older leadership set. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to keep going just because we have I can't believe this is so awesome. We have so many. So John Kenny says, as a boomer, I can say we were raised to never talk about it. John, I'm with you. That was my family too. It was a sign of weakness. That was such poor advice for our generation. So glad to see this now being addressed in our industry. Christy, I just love for you to kind of comment on that too, because I think that is so true.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, because our former owners were all boomers, and it's not something I don't think we ever talked about. It just was not talked about. The other thing I was sitting here thinking is that a lot of times when the foreman comes to us and complaining about something, do you know what that person's facing at home? And that's something that we used to not ever talk about, is, what's going on in their home life. So-and-so, you may not know it, but so-and-so's sister passed away, and that's probably affecting the way they're acting or working. But that's not something we used to talk about, but it is something that we talk about a good bit now.
Yeah. I know my parents, my husband's parents, you never talked about it. That was just like, you never talked about it. So all of a sudden now, as a Gen X generation, we started talking about it, and we started needing to talk about it. And that, it is it was hard. That journey was hard. And now we got to try to kind of break our old stigma, as John is saying, and be open. And so that's a challenge that I think shouldn't be poo-pooed for management, because it is hard. When you're kind of brainwashed one way growing up, and then all of a sudden you got to come somewhere different. So as you're kind of taking that to your management, I think it's important to remember there's all sides to how people are, what they're dealing with.
The other thing is, I think, even the ones that have come to us, and, again, this is something that's new to us. We've been dealing with it since 2018. We didn't punish them. I mean, which would be the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
We didn't, say you're fired, you're having all these issues, and you can't work here anymore. We did not do that. Communicate with us, let us know what's going on. Now, if you just all of a sudden don't show up and you're not communicating, there's a different story. But talk to us, let us. You don't have to tell us details, but let us know what's going on. Communicate with us, and I think they start to trust you. I think for the most part, our crews trust us, our workers trust us.
The trust of the team. I like that. That's a nugget I'm taking away. Mandy, there's a great question here. I'd like you to, it said, it's from Christine Young. Hi, Chris. How should we respond when asking how someone is doing and they continually respond, I'm fine, and they are not? That happens a lot.
That is a great question, and that does happen a lot. I think, all right, well, I'll go in this in two ways. One is, I'd be curious, what is the state of the company as far as company culture with talking about these issues? So if it's something that's never been addressed or talked about, that's probably going to be the response that you get. I'm fine, because a lot of people think it's a sign of weakness, or they're scared to say exactly what's going on. So if it's something that's never been addressed as a company, then I think you could then turn that conversation into a lunch and learn or a toolbox talk about, hey, we have an open door policy. We are here to support you. These are some resources. We genuinely are concerned that everyone here is doing well, both in and out of the workplace. And that's one way you could kind of skirt around the I'm fine issue. Or another idea would be, I've noticed some signs or symptoms. Would you want to go to lunch? And, I just want to talk to you, and offer going to lunch or breakfast or something to make them feel comfortable. And it depends on where you're having this conversation. If you're asking someone, hey, how you doing? And there's people walking by, they're about to go out the door to a job site, they're probably not going to get into it. But if you get them one-on-one in a more relaxed, calm atmosphere, you'll probably get more information from them.
That's very true. And so this question just came through from Danielle Klaus, and I think this is a great one on bullying versus microaggressions from coworkers. How do you kind of, I mean, they're both bad. So how do you kind of deal with that? Mandy, go ahead.
I mean, to me, they're really one and the same. I mean, whether you're intentionally doing it or unintentionally doing it, a comment that hurts is a comment that hurts. Perception is reality. So however people are taking that is what it is. So what was the question? How do you address that?
It's just Danielle, and I think it was a great thing. It's like there's bullying versus microaggressions, and how do those microaggressions how do you, I mean, they're both, but you got to basically, I guess, in toolbox talks, you're going to need to talk about both, right? There's out and out bullying, and then there's people who are just like picking and microaggressions. Yeah. And
microaggressions just reaffirm these stereotypes and old antiquated mindsets, I think, in regards to gender, to religion, to race. So a lot of times people say things that they don't even realize that is just reinforcing these bad ideas. So I think that goes into like DEI training. What are you doing as a company to address diversity, equity, and inclusion? I mean, a lunch and learn on microaggressions would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because most people probably don't even understand what they are. And so like an example would be like, oh, stop crying, you're acting like a little girl. Okay, but you have women on your team. So now you're saying you're equating weakness to being a woman. That's a microaggression. So, and that's just reinforcing, a male dominated industry and patriarchy and all of that. So DEI training, and just having a zero tolerance policy for bullying. And also just, you got to teach people what's right and what's wrong, what's acceptable and what's not.
And I think we're still going to have some of that out there when people just don't even realize. I mean, they should realize, but they don't realize.
Yeah. And a lot of times once you talk to somebody and you bring it to their attention, they're like, wow, I never thought about it that way, or I never realized. I mean, and we all make mistakes. I've said things that I was like, that probably wasn't the best thing. And so you can't be afraid to make mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes in anything controversial or contentious. So with diversity, equity, and inclusion, with mental health, you might say the wrong thing, but that's your learning opportunity to grow.
I've had a lot of learning opportunities, because you just, especially when you're just kind of out there and you're talking, you're coming from thing. And I think this next comment from Ian Edwards is great. It just says that. It says, to me, the crux here is normalizing asking for help and responding appropriately when help is requested. Would you have anything to add or elaborate on regarding this thought, leadership setting the example? Christy?
I think leadership has to set the example. Of course, we're all a family. I say we cry like family, we fight like family, we love like family. We openly talk about things that are going on. And I think that they see that. And so they realize that they can come to you and talk to you about what might be going on in their life, which is something we've, again, really tried to stress to our employees and our foremen. You don't know what's going on in someone's life. You don't know how someone was raised. Sometimes we are, I think I saw a comment, sometimes we are their only family. So just listen.
Yeah. So I'm not even going to have time to read all these comments, but I'm just going to say Lisa Spriggs came in and she says, you guys need to read the comments, Christy and Mandy, because thank you, Lisa, for being here. Such great comments. Chris came back and said, thank you for your answer. Wendy just came in, creating a culture. Oh my gosh, there is so much here and it's awesome. So we will get these comments and we will keep this conversation going. I am going to flip over real quick and share the PowerPoint again so that we make sure we get all of these resources out there for everybody. So maybe we can kind of talk through some of this. So here is the information on the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And Christy and Mandy, you were going to talk a little bit about this and what's going on with this number. So maybe Christy, do you want to start?
I'm gonna let Mandy start.
Mandy? Okay. Yeah, on the 980.
More about it.
Yeah. So this is the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There is a number that is in Spanish too that I can put in the chat. And this will be like part of this newsletter that I'm putting out, because there's so many resources that people just don't know where they are. So this is the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, but there is something coming out in July of this year, 988. And so what 988 is, it's basically the new 911. So everyone knows if there's an emergency, you call 911. Well, 988 platform is the mental health emergency line nationally. Literally every mental health organization is involved. The government's involved. It's the national platform so that people can call if there is a challenge or crisis. And that will be rolled out in July. I think there are some states that have it already, but the goal is to make it as known as 911, and it's just 988, and it's all mental health related.
Wow. That is cool.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is actually happening, that people are understanding the importance of this, and we have a number, 988.
Yeah, well, it started in 2020. The pandemic, brought a lot of this out, and then everyone got on board.
Yeah, I love it. And okay, prevent construction suicide. Here's another resource. Let's talk about that.
So this is a great resource. There's toolbox talks on there, I believe. It gives information as to why the construction industry is more susceptible to suicide and also to substance use. And they talk about things like high stress work environments, remote work environments, the tough guy mentality, the physicality of the job where opioids are prescribed, and then that leads to addiction. So this is a great resource that I think everyone should check out for sure.
I think we need another hour just to talk
about.
I know.
Maybe a part two.
we're gonna have a part two. We're gonna keep going on this because there's just so much. Here's the 988 information, and like we said, this is all being recorded. We're gonna have all of this online. So if you're scribbling away, that's good. Okay, Ray July is on, and she has some awesome comments in here. Ray and Jess, both leaders of our diversity DEI committee with National Women Roofing. Mandy, that you're on. And then Christy is just recently started on the executive team of National Women in Roofing. You guys are doing amazing things. Talk just a little bit about the Real Roofing and some of the support that's coming from National Women in Roofing. Mandy, maybe you can start.
Yeah, so Real Roofing, it is a diversity, equity, and inclusion training program for the roofing industry. We are in our cohort phases of, pilot programs, but we're looking to get this rolled out this summer. It will have an affordable price point. It is approximately a month's worth of lessons that you get text to your phone, and you learn all about things like microaggressions. A plethora of information that will help both employees and employers recruit, retain, engage your workforce, become a better company, and really just elevate the industry as a whole.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. And Christy, I mean, you've been on membership with National Women Roofing. You're moving on to the executive forum. This has been a topic all along that National Women Roofing has been passionate about.
It has been. I've been doing the training. It's eye-opening. It's exhausting sometimes because you think, oh my God, everything I'm doing is wrong. And then the one thing I said, I like to talk it out, and I have to think about it, and then go back and look at it again sometimes. But talking it out with other people helps me also. But it's going to be amazing. I think it'd be great for companies to do it as training as a whole. So they can talk things out, and I think it's going to be great.
One of the roots of, and just one, there are so many that come down to genetics and everything else, injuries, physical injuries. But one of the roots of poor mental health is misunderstanding and prejudice and meanness. Sorry if that's the right word, but so if some of you are wondering, like, well, how did DEI all of a sudden come into this? It's because this is kind of the start of helping strong mental health in kindness and in understanding each other. Mandy, you were about ready to say something.
Yeah, no, I mean, you think about like major thought leaders like Gary Vaynerchuk or Brene Brown, leading with empathy, leading with kindness. That doesn't equate to weakness. That is actually one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself, for your employees, and for your company. So these DEI initiatives correlate completely to mental health and a strong, healthy, viable, engaged workforce.
Yeah. And I just realized, Megan, you want to pop on here for 1 second? We have like 2 minutes left. We got so wrapped up. We should have brought you in. So Megan, some comments from Gen Z.
I think everyone should go to therapy. And difficult to find a good therapist, but it's definitely doable. And there are a lot of online resources where you can find a good therapist that works for you and works with you. And I think it's extremely important that everyone goes to therapy, even if you think you're fine. You're probably not. So that's my thought.
There you go. There you go. And that shows also the importance for this next generation, right, Megan, of that you guys want these conversations. We need these conversations. You want the conversations. And so it kind of all starts coming together.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And thank you for all you do on putting all these together. Mandy and Christy, wow. Thank you so much. This has been just powerful. Wait till you read all the notes. Lisa Garcia just said, 100% agree, Megan. Everyone needs a therapist. There we go. So we are going to continue. I just made some notes. We're going to do mental health 2 in the fall, because we are coming to the end of this season, but so stay tuned for that. Again, Mandy, Christy, thank you so much. This has just been powerful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of you for listening, and please join us in 2 weeks when Tremco and WTI again sponsor a coffee conversations on safety. It is going to have Trent Cotney talking from the legal and the OSHA side. We're going to have folks from OSHA. We also have Tony Paleo from Tremco and WTI, who leads all of their infield safety. This is going to be great. It's going to be, don't forget, Safety Stand Down, May 2nd through the 6th. We're going to be talking about it on the 12th and what all happened. And I just want to thank Tremco and WTI again for sponsoring today. I mean, talk about leadership and industry and thought leadership of being a sponsor for mental health. I can't say enough. And I've seen you all on there. You guys are amazing. And next time we'll talk safety. So keep that conversation going, pour a cup of coffee, and we'll see you next time on Coffee Conversations.